Good evening, dear friends. Welcome, welcome. Another beautiful course, our spring course. And welcome to everybody here on Zoom, here in person. Shalom Aleichem. Welcome, welcome, everyone. And here we are. God willing, we're going to have a fun time over the next 4 weeks. Come on in. Yeah, come on in. No problem. You're good. Okay. All right. It's all good. All right. And dear friends, Jewpernatural, a 4-week course, signs, spirits, and superstition and Jewish belief. So number one, did everybody get a book? I think everybody over here got a book. And for those trying it out, if after tonight's class you want to keep up with the course, you can take a book home. So, dear friends, before we jump in tonight, I want to first dedicate tonight's course. I want to thank the Lieb and Klein family, Joel and Barbara Lieb and Danny and Lisa Klein, for dedicating this course in loving memory of Mrs. Bernice Trogan of blessed memory. And here we are tonight. 4 weeks, Jewpernatural. And what are we here to do? You know, I'll tell you something very interesting. One of the interesting things I learned as a rabbi in marketing is people's interests. And it's always very fascinating. It's never what you think it's going to be. Let's get this out of your way over here. You know, sometimes there's a topic that I think will interest people tremendously, and it doesn't. It's interesting. This is one of those topics. Some people were really interested in it. Some people who usually enjoy coming to classes and learning Torah and learning about Judaism, they're like, no, I'm not touching this topic. You know what? This is weird. This is superstitious. Judaism has what to say about this. This is foreign beliefs. This is not Judaism. I want serious learning. And it's an interesting thing. You know, what are we here to do? So let's put it this way. Mankind has forever been fascinated by the supernatural. We call it paranormal. By the beyond nature, forces beyond nature, reality beyond nature, whatever that is. And it's just something that always captured the interest of people. People were fascinated by it. Come on, take a book. Wonderful. It fascinated people. People ridiculed it. But you can't deny that's been a very big part of human interest. And the interesting thing is that really since COVID, in the past few years, interest has really gone up. There's been some interesting studies about it. Some of them are printed here in your books. I don't want to go into depth with them. But in your books on page 2, you'll see we have page 2 and 3, we have 3 studies here that really show, especially amongst younger people, the interest in paranormal phenomena and the supernatural has really gone up. And it's an amazing thing that even as the world is progressing in the world of science, and the more we understand about our world, yet we are still reaching out into a sphere, a reality that's beyond the world of science, beyond our tangible reality, to maybe find some answers, to find comfort, who knows what. So the question is, what does Judaism say about it? And that's really what we're going to be doing over here today. We have a very focused agenda here. We as Jews want to know, what does Judaism have to say about this? And Judaism does have what to say about this. A lot of these ideas even originate in Judaism and historically have spilled over from Judaism into the larger society, into other religions, into pop culture today. But Judaism really has a very rich tradition about all these topics. And we're going to be doing a very authentic study of Judaism on these fascinating topics. So these are going to be the 4 topics we're going to be covering in this course. It's a 4-week course, first of all. Usually our courses are 6 weeks. Now we have a little more of a shorter course. It's like that we could get it all in before Memorial Day. Lesson 1 is dreams. Next week, astrology and stars and the horoscopes. I just saw that Starbucks started making a program that they'll give you a coffee based on your horoscope. You guys saw this? So interesting. It's amazing that these beliefs are coming back in vogue. Lesson 3, jinxes and curses. Lesson 4, angels, demons, spirits, and souls. So we've got quite a big agenda. I just want to share with you one of the beautiful things that hopefully we're going to see is that we're not just learning interesting, fascinating, random information about weird topics. The more we learn about this, the more we're going to understand about ourselves, about our own spiritual identities, and about our own space and purpose here in the here and now. So, God willing, it's going to be both fascinating, interesting, but also meaningful and hopefully inspirational. So that's the agenda. Let's get on with the show. And tonight's topic is dreams and direction. Dreams. It's a good topic to begin with because, some people could say, I do believe in, in the power of astrology. Some people say, I don't believe. Okay, that's fair. But dreams, nobody could say they don't believe in dreams. That is universal to the human experience. We all dream. And the only question is, why do we dream? And do dreams ever carry meaning? Do they always carry meaning? Do they never carry any meaning? So that's really going to be what we're going to be doing tonight. And just before we jump in, a little vote of hands. Who is leaning more in this room to dreams being meaningful? To dreams sending us messages? What do you say? How are we doing on the vote? You're a little bit shaky. Okay, but that's half a hand. That's okay. Who is on the more skeptical, dismissive side of things with the dreams? There you go. That's good. A healthy dose of skepticism is going to go a very long way in this course. Okay. All right, so that's good. So we're we're for the most part pro dreams, but there's also some skepticism in the room. I'm all on board. Very good. Okay. I want to share with you two case studies that we're going to be using, that as we journey through the Jewish view on dreams, let's keep these two scenarios, these two stories in mind. So here's our first story for tonight, our opening case study, and we'll watch it via video. So here we go.
900 feet long, 175 feet from keel to funnel, bearing over 2,000 souls, including several of the world's wealthiest. Experts had crowned it the unsinkable, and it was making good time on its maiden voyage. One Jewish man, though, battled a feeling of unease. Isaac Frauenthal was born in Pennsylvania in October 1868, on the Jewish festival of Hoshana Rabbah, meaning Great Salvation. He opened a law practice in New York, and in March 1912, he traveled to Nice, France, to attend his brother Henry's wedding to Clara Rogers. The newlyweds journeyed on to the English port city of Southampton to ride the luxurious Titanic back to New York. And why not? A new life, a new ship, a liner predicted to live happily ever after. Isaac chose a scenic route through France, boarding the Titanic at Cherbourg the day after Passover. He paid today's equivalent of $4,000 for a first-class ticket. But he was jittery. Days earlier, he had an awful dream. He saw himself aboard a colossal steamship that crashed headlong into something large and began to sink beneath the waves. He awoke shaken, but dismissed the dream because he believed neither in dreams nor the supernatural. The night before boarding, his dream reoccurred. An oceanic collision, helplessly sinking. Escape, escape. But the sun rose, and so did he. A lot less certain than before. Was there anything to this? Should he board the Titanic? Should he share his dream? No, they would mock him. The ship was unsinkable. Isaac quietly boarded the Titan of the sea, but he later found a moment to share his fearful vision. As expected, he was roundly ridiculed. Until 4 nights later, when, at 11:40 on April 14th, the ship's lookout spotted a colossal iceberg dead ahead. The Titanic reversed its mighty engines and lurched to the left, but its starboard was lacerated. Ice tore into steel, and water dragged the ship's throat downwards. Isaac heard the captain express terror and ran to rouse Henry and Clara. Too many passengers refused to abandon ship at midnight, unable to believe that a lifeboat was safer than an Olympic liner. But Isaac had seen this vessel sink twice already. As he rolled into a lifeboat, he said, "Well, Henry, I wasn't so foolish, was I?" Henry wasn't sure. Surely such an engineering wonder could remain afloat until it could be repaired or towed. But the Titanic's stern rose into the air with hundreds clinging on. Snapping clean in two, the vessel plunged into the eternal silence of a bottomless ocean. 1,500 souls were lost. A nightmare, a reality, in the heart of the night. One sunrise and 6 hours later, Isaac was hoisted aboard the Carpathia, which sailed on to New York. He no longer doubted that something had forewarned him about the disaster. Isaac Frauenthal dismissed his disturbing dreams and sailed aboard the Titanic. If you had been in his position, would you have done the same?
All right. It's quite a story, no? All right, so this is going to be the dilemma. Let's say it's before the Titanic, before he boards the Titanic. It's not a story yet. I once read, a guy writes, he says, my grandpa, he was very brave. He walked up and down and warned everybody, it's gonna sink, the Titanic's gonna sink. And everybody was screaming at him, just sit down, stop it already, what are you saying? Until finally, they kicked him out of the theater. All right, good. You get it? All right. But he was brave. Truth to power, right? Okay, all right. So this is the question. Let's say Isaac Frauenthal, who I think was a Jew, right? This sounds like a Jewish guy. Okay. And where did it say he grew up? What was the city? Philadelphia? Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania somewhere.
Yeah, he was probably Jewish. Isaac Frauenthal. Okay. Let's say Wilkes-Barre? Well, that's very Jewish. Okay, wonderful. Right by the Susquehanna River. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. So in any case, so let's say I was Isaac Frauenthal's rabbi, and he comes over to me and says, I've got this $4,000 ticket. That's right, it's a big deal. In today's equivalent to $4,000, but I'm having this ominous dream. What do I do? Is it just a dream, or should I maybe pay some heed to it? That's going to be the question. What would Judaism guide Isaac Frauenthal to do? Okay. And that comes also to the next point that I want to point out to you, is what criteria should we use to determine whether to take a dream seriously? I don't know, like it makes sense that you'll be jittery before going on a big trip across the ocean, So you could dream about these things. So when, what is the line where you say, wow, this is a dream we should listen to? Or when do you just say, it's just a dream, big deal. Shake it off, move on with life? That's the question. Okay, I want to show you one more video before we jump in. And this is a video of a Holocaust survivor that in 1991 came to the Rebbe, to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he was bothered by dreams, all right? And what I'm going to do is I'm only going to show you a part of this video. I'm going to cut the video short before we have the Rebbe's response, because I want to save that for the end of today's class, all right? What did the Rebbe answer? But let's at least get the question. Elke, do you mind getting the lights? All right, I appreciate that. All right, here we go.
Verloren die ganze Mischbuche. Ein Brudermann ist gestorben, eine Woche nach der Befreiung. Holen sich mir fast 2-3 Mal an der Woche. Also ich wollte mir gewesen, also ich wollte gelebt schon zusammen, schon 45 Jahre. Und es geht nicht weg, ich weiß nicht. Ich bin im Käufer gewesen auf einem christlichen Cemetery in Deutschland. In Deutschland? Ich habe mir rausgenommen und gemacht alle Weihe nach München auf jüdischen Besäulem in einem Kasten. Ich habe gerade noch 4 Brüder. Sie holen sich mir einmal selten, aber der Bruder, ich kann nicht verstehen, ich bin mit dem allemal, ich habe mit ihm gelebt jetzt.
So first of all, you can really see he's bothered, he's shaken. This is a big deal. For 45 years, this brother's coming to him 2-3 times a week. It's probably a better word for it, but this is chronic. This is not just a one-off time thing. This is very serious. Okay. And this is another interesting scenario. A loved one comes to you in a dream. Is it real? When is it real? Okay. Now, if I would tell you, I think it's safe to all of you to assume that if we're dedicating an hour-and-a-half class to the Jewish view on dreams, the Jewish take wouldn't be a categorical no. It's just a dream. because then there wouldn't be much to talk about. Class is over, take some food to go home, and have a wonderful evening. But obviously, there is some nuance over here. To say that every dream is automatically meaningful and every single dream is predicting to your future or whatever, or giving you messages, that's I think we could all agree that's a little bit overdoing it. Every dream is telling you messages, but there's maybe some level of balance. I think that's what a lot of people feel that way. Most dreams we disregard, but some dreams capture us, or maybe we want it to be real. We want it to talk to us. So what is that? When is a dream real? When is it not? It's even baked into the word dream. Sometimes we use the word. Sometimes we'll tell somebody, "Oh, you're just dreaming," which means like you lost your grip on reality. And sometimes we'll say, "No, I have a dream," which means this is an aspiration, something I want to work towards, something which is attainable. So that's kind of a little bit of the of this conflict that we have within dreams itself. Sometimes it feels very real. Sometimes we're just it's just imagination. It's our imagination running wild. So when is it what? And what we're going to do is we're going to look at Judaism to give us the guidance to understand our dreams. When is our dream real? When is it not? How do we decipher dreams? By the end of tonight's class, God willing, you'll all know how to interpret all of your dreams and everybody else's dreams. Not really. My dad is the Chabad rabbi in Princeton, New Jersey. So a guy once came over to him and said, "Rabbi, I had a dream that you're supposed to give me money." So my father said, "You know what? When you dream that you should be giving me money, then I'll believe you." Okay, but in any case. Okay, so let us begin our journey. What is the Jewish take on dreams? So it all begins, let's start at the very beginning. Let's start in the Bible, let's start in the Torah. We'll make our way down. If you look in the Torah, there's 5 books in the Torah, but the most famous book is the book of Genesis, where all the stories are. Most Jews know about the book of Genesis and know generally about the stories. And in the book of Genesis, there are a lot of dreams. There are lots of dreams in the book of Genesis. So if you would just take a very basic look in the book of Genesis, you would get the impression that Judaism definitely does take dreams pretty seriously. And says that yes, there could be communications, divine communications, to human beings through the medium of dreams. Take a look on page 6. I don't want to go through all of these examples over here. But on page 6 you will see just a few, and there are even more, of the dreams that we encounter in the book of Genesis, where God is clearly sending messages to both great people, Jews, non-Jews, and these are very important parts of the narrative in the book of Genesis. Maybe just 2 quick examples. If you look on page 7, many of the dreams surround Joseph. Joseph was the 11th son to Jacob, to our patriarch Jacob, second to youngest. And he was also his father's favorite, and all of his brothers were jealous of him. The Torah tells us the whole story. And Joseph one day shows up. He had a dream one night, Joseph, where he symbolically sees all of his brothers and his parents bowing down to him. He saw the dream twice, each time in a different form. And he was a little bit naive enough to tell his brothers about the dream, which only made them even more jealous of him and more resentful. But the Torah says the dream did, in fact, happen. It was predicting the future. A few years later, Joseph was in Egypt, and he became second to the king, the viceroy of Egypt, and the brothers had to come, and indeed, they figuratively had to bow down to Joseph's authority. So it was a legitimate dream. And then Joseph, as well in Egypt, this is actually what brought him to power. The Pharaoh of Egypt has a dream. He dreams about how 7 skinny cows are swallowing 7 fat cows. And Joseph is the one who predicts that there's going to be 7 years of famine and how the land of Egypt has to prepare for the famine, the 7-year-long famine that's going to be arriving. And that's what brings Joseph to power as well. And the brothers referred to Joseph as derogatorily. They referred to Joseph as the Baal HaChalomot, the dreamer. And they didn't mean it as a compliment. All right? The dreamer. So we see over here, God is definitely sending messages. Dreams are predicting the future. They are part of the narrative. And it seems very clear every single dream mentioned in the book of Genesis is real and legit. Now I'll tell you something interesting. In the story of Purim, the story where we have the salvation that came through Mordechai and Esther from the evil Haman, the Megillah says that after Haman successfully was able to pass the decree of annihilation to murder every single Jew, it says, and Mordechai was made known of this decree. Now, we don't know how he knew about it. Our sages tell us that Haman, the whole thing was classified. There was a gag order. No one knew that there was this decree. It was meant to be kept under wraps until last minute. And Mordechai somehow found out about this decree even before it was made public. How did he know about it? Our sages tell us God told Mordechai in a dream. So in the Megillah, it doesn't say that. It just says Mordechai found out about it. How did he find out? He had a dream. It was a divine communication that you need to get your act together. There's something bad coming up. Okay? So if you look in the Torah, dreams definitely seem to be valid. At least some dreams. But okay, so at least we have our first building block. Dreams could be sometimes, but definitely could be, and sometimes are very significant divine communications and can be predicting the future. Sounds good? All right, that's conclusion number one. But this still doesn't really give us much to work with, much guidance to work with. But so let's keep on going. Let's jump in over here. We're going to go down to the Talmud. Now, the Talmud starts going a little bit more specific and giving us a more precise direction about dreams. So, dear friends, what we're going to do is we're going to read a bunch of passages from the Talmud. And what we're going to see is that it's not so simple. In Judaism, when we study Torah, the classical style of studying Torah is to first build a question, first create tension, and then we'll try to answer it. So it always comes in that give and take of question and answer. So let's first build up a question. And the question is, if you look in the Talmud, there seems to be a certain inconsistency. The Talmud contradicts itself in its understanding of dreams. So let us start reading a little bit from the Talmud, and I'll show you both sides of the equation. Let's start reading some texts. Now, for those of you who are new here, we go around the room, and everybody gets the opportunity to read. Gives me a chance to drink a little bit of water to lubricate my throat after a long day. But if you don't want to read, that's okay. All right, so let us. Max, you want to take us off?
Sure.
Text 3, page 10, our first quote from the Talmud. Go ahead.
A dream is 1/60th of prophecy.
There we have it. Our first text. All right. So Judaism believes in prophecy. On page 10, this was, yeah. Judaism believes in prophecy. And we've spoken a lot about prophecy in some of the previous classes. We're not going to go too much into it now. But back in the day, there were many prophets amongst the Jewish people. And the Talmud actually tells us that there was a cutoff date where God decided that the era of prophecy is over. And the power of prophecy will only return when Mashiach comes, in the Messianic era. Okay. And prophecy means that God communicates to a human being. Moses was a prophet. Mordechai was a prophet. Esther was a prophetess. There were prophets. Dreaming is 1/60th of a prophecy. That's a very powerful statement, which means it's not a full-blown prophecy, but it's a little bit, a miniature, a micro-prophecy, this is, at least a little bit. Now, what does it mean it's only 1/60th? So we could really try to understand, what does that mean it's only 1/60th? But at the end of the day, you read the statement. What does it tell you about dreams? Are dreams real? Are dreams meaningful? A little. It's the moment you say that dreams are mini prophecies, this is serious business. All right. Now, why is it only 1/60th? Maybe the dream is not as clear. Maybe it's more indirect. Maybe it's not completely accurate. Prophecy is a lot more straightforward. It's fully accurate. Maybe dreams are not as much. So we could try to quibble and this and then, try to figure out why it's only 1/60th. But 1/60th it is. It's definitely something. So, and this becomes an attitude that we do see a lot in the Talmud. The Talmud takes dreams seriously. And in fact, right where the Talmud says this, that dreams are 1/60th of prophecy, the Talmud then goes and gives a little bit of a list, like a cheat list, of different things that you may see in a dream and what it means. A little bit of interpretation. So just take a look at this on page 11, and it goes through page 13. We're not going to go through all of these, but this is the list from the Talmud. That's on page 56b to 57b, on Tractate Brachot in the Talmud. If you see any of these things in your dream, this is what it means according to the Talmud. And a lot of the meanings of these are actually very counterintuitive. I like this one. If a snake bites you in a dream, you know what that means? It sounds like a nightmare, no? The Talmud says it signifies a doubling of livelihood. I bless you all tonight to dream that you were bit by a snake. Isn't that wonderful? But by the way, if you dream that you killed a snake, then it may sound good in a dream, but the Talmud says it signifies your livelihood is ruined. A snake represents livelihood for some reason. But it's very counterintuitive. So deciphering dreams is not at all simple. A lot of this is very not intuitive. In fact, I think none of it is intuitive. It's all very weird. But we do see over here that the Talmud says dreams are meaningful, 1/60th of prophecy, different images that you see in a dream convey certain messages, and the Talmud takes that. Let's read one more text that just shows us how serious the sages of the Talmudic era, the Jewish sages, took their dreams. So text 4, page 14. Shana, you want to give us a read?
Sure.
All right, text 4.
Rav Yeshua, the son of Rav Edi, visited the home of Rav Ashi. His host prepared a third-born calf and offered it to him to eat. Rav Ashi responded, "I am observing a fast." They countered, "Do not agree with the ruling of Rav Yehuda that a person may break a self-imposed fast and repay his obligation by fasting on a different day." Oh, do you not agree? I'm sorry, it's a question. Rav Ashi replied, "This is a fast due to a bad dream." Rav Bar
Mechasia.
taught in the name of Rav Hama Bar Uriah, who taught in the name of Rav that a fast nullifies the portents of a bad dream like fire consumes flax. And Rav Hasida stipulated that the fast is the most effective when observed on the day of the dream. Rav Yosef added that such a fast may even be observed on Shabbat.
Okay, so here we have a story, and there's lots of great Talmudic names flying, lots of names that have fallen a little bit out of use in the Jewish community. Why does nobody name their kids anymore Mechasia? That's a nice name, no? I have a cousin whose name is Shammai. That's a very unusual Jewish name. Shammai was a Jewish sage. He was the counterpart of Hillel, the great sage. So if Hillel is a common name, Shammai should also be. But no one names their kids Shammai anymore. He's Shammai. It's a cool name. All right. In any case, what do we see here from this text? The sages took their dreams seriously. Here's a sage, Rav Ashi, a very big Talmudic sage. He has a dream which is not the happiest dream. He senses something dreadful, something ominous in this dream. He takes upon himself a fast. And in Jewish tradition, a fast is a way of averting a negative decree, something negative, to change the divine will from something negative to something positive. So he's fasting. And he even says, he quotes from Rav Yosef, that if you are fasting for a dream, you're allowed to even fast on Shabbos. Now that's a very big deal. According to Jewish law, Shabbos, the seventh day of the week, is a day where the mitzvah is to have a good time. You're meant to enjoy Shabbos. You're not allowed to do anything that's going to get you down or depressed on Shabbos. It has to be a happy day. According to Jewish law, you are not allowed to fast on Shabbos, the seventh day of the week. So even if it's a very serious fast, like for example, the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, on the Jewish calendar, is the saddest day on the Jewish calendar. It's the anniversary that both holy temples were destroyed in Jerusalem. They were both destroyed on the exact same Hebrew day, and it's a very serious fasting. If Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, we push it off a day. We say, I'm sorry, today's Shabbos. We're going to celebrate, we're going to eat. And Saturday night, when Shabbos is over, then we could fast. So we push off. You never fast on Shabbos. The only time where Jewish law would let you fast on Shabbos is if it's for a bad dream. Even Shabbos, you're allowed to fast. Yom Kippur, but Yom Kippur is not a day of affliction. It's a different type of fasting. It's more spiritual fasting. But a day where it's meant to be a specifically an act of affliction, then you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos. So that's right. Yom Kippur is the one exception to that. The general idea we're getting over here is that the Talmud does take dreams very seriously. 1/60th of prophecy. We've got a whole cheat sheet over here. How to decipher your dreams. And the sages even fasted, and they definitely gave a lot of credibility to their dreams. Okay, but. There's always a very big but. Nothing in Judaism is simple. I've cherry-picked these few texts for you. But now I'm going to show you a few texts of the Talmud that sing a very different tune. Let us read now text 6. And over here we get a whole different attitude in the Talmud to dreams that totally seems to contradict whatever we've been learning until now. Richard, you want to read text 6? Page 17.
No. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani taught in the name of Rabbi Yonah. People are only shown in their dreams the products of their own thoughts. The Roman emperor once said to Rabbi Yehoshua, the son of Rabbi Hananiah, "You Jews claim to be very wise. Tell me then, what will I see in my dream tonight?" Rabbi Yehoshua replied, "You will see the Persians capture and enslave you and force you to herd pigs with a golden staff." The emperor thought about this vision all day, and at night he saw it in his dream. King Shapur once said to Shmuel, "You Jews claim to be very wise. Tell me then, what will I see in my dream tonight?" Shmuel replied, "You will see the Romans take you captive and force you to grind date pits with a golden mill." The king thought about this vision all day, and at night he saw it in his dream.
All right. So here, the Talmud is totally dismissive. Don't take your dreams too seriously. You know what dreams are? Whatever you've been thinking about by day, that's what comes to you by night. And the Talmud then quotes 2 stories that show just how easily the human mind can be manipulated into thinking about something. And if you think about something obsessively enough, you'll dream about it that night. Well, that's it. And the message that the Talmud basically gives off is like, look, any medium that can be manipulated so easily to give you this vision or that vision, you can take it seriously. All that's happening is that these figments of your imagination are reappearing in your dreams in only more dramatic and in more wacky form. That's it. Over. So what happened to the 1/60th of prophecy? Well, this idea, whatever you've been thinking about, that's what. Let's read another text. This is an unbelievable text because it just shows how far the Talmud goes in utterly rejecting and not willing to give any validity to dreams. Here's what happens. There's a guy, his father died, and he knows that his father left a fortune somewhere. But he doesn't know where. It's stuck in some Swiss bank account. I don't know. But then one night, his father appears to him, tells him where the treasure is, but leaves a condition. Let's read this next text, Toby. And I'm gonna jump in when there's a Hebrew term. I'll just explain it to you. So I'm gonna interject. Text 7, page 19.
A person was troubled about the whereabouts of money that his deceased father left for him. He dreamed that his father told him exactly how much money it was and where it could be found, but that it was consecrated as Ma'asur Sheni.
Yeah, Ma'aser Sheni is a Hebrew term. It basically means to charity. It was already all pledged to charity. So, okay, keep on going.
He went to the specified place and indeed found the specified sum of money. The sages instructed this person that the content of dreams are irrelevant, and he need not treat the money as Ma'asur Sheni.
All right. This is a very, very interesting text. Because this is a dream that was proven to be true. He knows his father left money somewhere, he doesn't know where. One day his father comes and tells him where it is, but then stipulates, I've already pledged it all to charity. He goes to that place, and lo and behold, it's there. So what are the chances of this dream just being a figment of the imagination? The odds are very low. No, this seems like a real dream. But he finds this whole treasure. The only problem is that he heard in his dream it's already charity. So he goes to the rabbis and says, do I need to give it to charity? And what do the rabbis say?
No.
Nah, come on. The rabbis already said all dreams are meaningless. So you can keep the money. The whole charity thing is bogus. But 1 second. You can't dismiss this dream. It's real. He found the money. And yet the rabbi said, I'm sorry, you have no obligation to give it to charity. Isn't that interesting? Like such an utter dismissive attitude. I don't care what's real, don't believe it. Keep the money, enjoy it. Gesundheit. So it's very surprising. We have to understand what's going on over here. Why over here are the rabbis so dismissive, even though this is an incredibly validated dream? But also, we have a very big contradiction here. In some texts, the Talmud is very supportive of dreams. Here's how to interpret dreams, even mini prophecies. We take it seriously. Other dreams, the sages are like, oh, don't even begin to give it any weight. Carries no water. Just ignore it. It's okay. How do we reconcile this? What do you say? Any ideas? I've had to answer this contradiction. How do we reconcile this?
I was gonna say for him to give 50% to charity and keep 50%.
Right. Meaning, if he could still give it to charity if he wants. The question is if he's obligated. I'll put it this way: if your father is alive and you hear from your father directly that I'm leaving money in my bank account, I just want you to know I promise it all to charity. Jewish law would say you are not allowed to keep that money. It's pledged. You give it. Now, here, it's not in person, it's in a dream. But the dream seems like a pretty valid dream, and yet the sages say, I'm sorry. A dream? No. Carries no legal weight that would say you must give away the money. Now, if you want, of course, it's a free country, give away the money. It's beautiful.
But if the dream was real enough to tell him where it was, then maybe the caveat that came with it is also real enough because it's in the same dream.
That's what we would assume, right? That would be our automatic assumption. Once a dream is validated, then take the whole thing. Probably means the whole thing is real. But the sages of the Talmud still, for some reason, we're going to have to answer this. But the larger problem here is that we have a contradiction. The Talmud seems to give two very different attitudes towards dreams. Yes.
So 59/60 is pretty big thing.
You're saying 59 out of 60 is not prophecy, and is what?
Is 59 minutes out of the hour.
Is Mishigas.
Is Mishigas. And
It's like if you say, I was very productive this hour. 1/60th of the hour was very productive.
1 minute.
Is that a productive hour overall? I guess not. Yes, I hear what you're saying. You're saying there's also another 59%.
The other thing
Not for-
is
yeah.
that we don't really want our lives to be ruled by our dreams.
Right. You're saying we don't either want to be that under control of a force that's beyond our control.
The 59/60th of Mishigas, you really don't want to overemphasize them. For
The one
that
prophecy.
it's really.
Yeah, I hear you. So you're saying you have to have a healthy balance. 1 out of 60 is prophecy, but the other 59 of 60, the vast majority could be very not prophetic. Okay. But the point is, we still see two different attitudes. There's, the Talmud never kind of takes this very cautious road. It's like either totally dismissive or very embracing the idea that it's a dream, it's an ominous dream, there's a message here. And there's many other texts as well, by the way, where the Talmud is very supportive of dreams. So let's decipher this. The plot is thickening, right? We want to try to get to the bottom of our dreams. So, dear friends, let's read this next text. Text 8. The Talmud itself asks this question. The Talmud itself gives an answer. And dear friends, buckle up. This is going to open us up to a whole new world. Here we're going into the deep end. Text 8. Larry, we're by you. Page 20.
Rava raised the contradiction between two verses. In one verse, God says, I speak with the prophet in a dream. But a second verse states, dreams speak falsely. The Talmud resolves this. There are two types of dreams. Some come by means of an angel, and some come by means of a demon.
Ooh. That's heavy, no? Ooh, how do we know? I told you the plot's thickening. Okay. We're getting more questions than answers here, huh?
I
Yes.
have a question.
Sure.
Are all dreams assumed to be when you're sleeping?
You're saying, what about daydreams?
Or are they dreams while you're awake? Because some people dream while they're awake.
I don't know. I believe for this conversation, we're talking about sleeping dreams, but when you're awake, I don't know. That's a good question. If it would be different, would it be the same? I don't know. But presumably we're talking over here about the dreams that we have when we are asleep. Okay. There's angels, there are demons. First of all, what does this even mean? Okay. So the topic of angels and demons is going to be lesson 4. All right, I'm going to keep you on suspense. We're not going to talk too much about them. But we do have over here, there's 2 types of dreams. All of our dreams seem to us as one type of dream, right? We just have dreams. And some are nicer dreams, some are worse dreams. The Talmud says there are 2 very different types of dreams, coming from 2 totally separate places. Some come from an angel, some come by means of a demon. So they could look to you the same. None of the dreams come with us with a sent by, who's sender? No, this is an angel sending you. Oh, that's a demon. So what is going on over here? So dear friends, in order to understand what this means, there's 2 different types of dreams. We have to understand what happens when we sleep. What is sleep all about? What happens when we sleep? And then why do we dream? And then we're going to have to understand what this means. There's 2 different types of dreams. And I'm going to share with you something that the teachings of Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, teach us. And we're going to read a few pieces about this. It's a very interesting question that has always puzzled the great philosophers. Why do humans sleep? We sleep so much. How much of our life is spent sleeping? Like 1/3 of our life? 1/3 of life is spent sleeping. What is going on? I'm saying it's the most useless thing. But sleeping is very, very important to us as humans. On a practical level, on a physiological level, we know you need to sleep. If you don't sleep, what happens? You never renew, you rejuvenate. And it's very important at every single level. Your mind processes everything that was happening that day. You even sweat when you sleep, which is very important, sweating. It's like an interesting. Your whole body is going through this process of cleaning up shop, getting you ready for the next day to give you a brand new, fresh day the next day. The Kabbalah says like this: sleeping is also a spiritual experience. Something happens very importantly on a spiritual level. The Talmud says that sleep, Talmud uses very similar phraseology to what we've been reading about before. The Talmud says sleep is 1/60th of death. Dreaming is 1/60th of prophecy. Sleeping is 1/60th of death. When you sleep, what happens is, Jewish mysticism tells us, your soul ascends back on high. That's what happens when you sleep. The body becomes somewhat unconscious, and your soul returns to its spiritual, natural habitat. On a basic level, what happens over there? The soul is given new energy. Our energy, the force of life stems from the soul. So the soul is given those resources. As well as the soul is given its new mission. Every single day has a new mission, a new purpose. And in Judaism, we believe that life has a purpose. But not just life has a purpose. Every day has its own purpose. There's a separate mission every single day. And this is somewhat of the soul going back to its home base, debriefing, getting a new brief, getting a new mission, and then returning back to the body with all the new energy and the new resources and the new mission. So when you sleep, your body is rejuvenating, your soul is as well.
Is this the godly soul, the animal?
The godly soul, yeah. That the spiritual soul goes up on high. And it's a spiritual experience. Let us read this next text. Text 9, page 21. And this is from a Hasidic discourse, from a Maimer. Sa'elki. Text 9, page 21. Let's read.
At a certain time during sleep, souls rise up to the heavens
stature they have achieved with their daytime divine service. More specifically, if a person observed a mitzvah, studied Torah, or prayed in a more beautiful and complete manner that day, or went to sleep with words or thoughts of Torah in the night, they merit a loftier location in heaven. The heavenly palace contains hallways, colonnades, lounges, and halls in which the soul can rest when it rises to heaven to draw new life during sleep.
So if you thought nothing happens when you sleep, you're going to the heavenly lounge over here. What's it called? The Delta Lounge? You know, how do you get it? This is serious stuff. And depending what credit card your soul has, depends which lounge, what level it could get up to over here. And it says based on the spiritual level and based on what happened that day, the more that we cultivate the spirituality of our soul that day, the more our soul is able to access higher levels, more spiritual layers. And honestly, I'm not sure exactly what this experience is like, I'm saying, but this is what happens. And this is really where the human energy comes from every single day. First of all, practically we have new energy, we are freshened up, but also we have more energy, more inspiration to do good that day. It all comes from what happens when we sleep. Now, while your soul is up there, we're down here sleeping. This guy, look at him. He's snoring away. But your soul's up there. So it's like when you sleep, it's a little bit like death because there's like a separation from soul from body. And usually we're one cohesive unit. The soul's in the body. Over here, there's now, you are in two places at once. Now you're literally split in half. The soul is in a spiritual place and your body is down here on earth. What happens is there are angels up there in heaven. And again, it will be defining and describing and going through the whole topic of angels in lesson 4. But your soul interacts with angels up on high. And very often, okay, there's a question here. So Leah, go ahead.
Okay, so the question is this. So if your soul is on high, can it meet up with the souls of the departed? Because sometimes people will say, I had a dream about so-and-so who passed.
We'll get there soon. Is it possible that you're meeting with souls departed? Let's get there soon. But we first have to, get our heads around this big concept over here. But yeah, but that's a good question. And a very valid question. The soul goes up to heaven, interacts with angels, and sometimes angels could give that soul different messages, which will appear to us as dreams. Let's read text 10, straight from the Zohar, from the classical work of Jewish mysticism. And Barbara, we're by you. Text 10, page 22.
While a person sleeps, the soul rises to the level of the holy angels and receives certain information, learns new things, and then returns to its place. This is an experience of connection to holiness.
You see what's happening over here? Angels could go, the souls go up, and sometimes angels will give certain information to the soul. And that is part of the soul's connection with holiness. And very often those communications from angels will appear to us as dreams. That's one form of dream. One form of dreams are angels giving you information. But then there's another type of dream, which we call demons. So one form of dreams come from all the way up there. Angels are giving you information, and that could be angelic dreams. But then there's the dreams of demons. Now, you hear the word demons, and you think that it's all and you think that there's like these demonic forces giving you dreams. It's a lot less simple. It's a lot less scary than that. But I just want to back up for a moment. In Jewish tradition, we have writings. We know sages have been doing this in all times. Great sages would write to us, and they wrote in their books that sometimes they were very puzzled. They were studying Torah, and they had a question that they were struggling with, or there was a problem in the community that they were struggling with. And it was a very common form for great sages, for great rabbis, not regular people like me and you. We're talking about real tzaddikim, righteous people, that they would pray to God that they should be able to receive the answer in their dreams. And this is a very big part of Jewish tradition. Rabbis would regularly access information via dreams. There are even full books written from rabbis, the teachings they've heard when they dreamt. Lots and lots of stories like that. And in the additional readings, we actually have a little collection, a few samplings of dreams from great rabbis from the previous eras, where they report about different dreams that they've had, either for personal matters or communal matters. But dreaming was definitely a very big part, that this idea that your soul goes up and angels can sometimes fill you in on certain questions, give you guidance, and give you the answers that you need. Very interesting thing. So this is one possibility. Then there's another possibility, which we call dreams that come from a demon. Now, what does a demon mean? Let's read this next text. Let's read this next text. Text 11, Sally, you'll read it. Page 23.
Yes, false dreams are the product of an unhealthy, possessed imagination. The sages borrowed the term demon to describe this negative, destructive spirit that afflicts a person. Dreams from this source are meaningless, and one shouldn't be concerned about them at all.
Okay, so over here, when we talk about demons, we mean the internal demons. We mean demons on a psychological level. We all have mental demons, things that possess us, things that haunt us, our fears, our worries, our unhealthy thoughts. And these are stuff that possess our mind and boggle the and bog down the mind. What happens when we dream is that the mind goes through a certain shedding process. This is what Kabbalah teaches us. And this is a very, very practical, even physiological experience. Not physiological, but on a very, it's not on a soul level, it's very practical. The mind takes whatever it gathered, all that information, all that data that it picked up during the day, and lots of clutter, and files it. We all know that this happens. Mentally, neurologically, the mind is taking all the information, retaining what's important. Good memories, important memories, it solidifies those memories. But then a lot of things the mind sheds. The mind gets rid of it. The mind says, oh, this is stupid. This is just cluttering the mind. And the mind literally like sweats it out, sheds it out. A lot of subconscious things, and a lot of the unimportant stuff. A lot of the things that are just weighing down the mind releases it at night during our sleeping. And that process of releasing all the stuff that are just weighing down on the mind, we experience as dreaming. Which is why when we dream, very often our dreams are things we've either thought about that day or even subconsciously have been in our mind that day. Anything that possessed our mind, that the mind is shedding while we sleep, we sometimes experience that as dreaming. Very interesting thing that Kabbalah tells us. And that is why, Kabbalah says also, this is why when we wake up, we feel so fresh. Our mind works well. It teaches that when it's late at night, sometimes we try learning. You all know this, and we could join a class, but the mind is it's so beaten up already. It's too cluttered from a whole day. It's so clouded, and the mind doesn't work. You know why? Because it's just so heavy with so much stimulation and just so much clutter in the mind. So when you sleep, the mind just releases all of that. It just lets go of all of it, and that's when we wake up in the morning. We're fresh. We're crisp. The mind is well organized, all cleaned out, power washed down, now ready that's why we're fresh in the morning. This is a very, very practical thing that Kabbalah says happens when we sleep. The mind sheds all the clutter. And Kabbalah says it's just like sweating. Sweating is a sign of healing. What happens when we sweat? Sweating is when the body gets rid of toxins and is able to release certain unhealthy things that are within our bloodstream or just within us, and that helps us feel fresh and healthy again. It's the same thing, like the mind figuratively sweats out anything undesirable. And those are the dreams that come from the imagination or that come from what we call, the Talmud refers to as demons, the inner demons. It's not some outside force, it's the inner demons. So we have two forms of dreams. We have dreams that come from angels, dreams that come from our imagination, which the Talmud refers to as demons. So let's recap what we just studied. There's two forms of dreams. Some come from angels, some come from demons. What are angels? They are positive spiritual forces. They occupy the heavenly realm. They occupy heavenly space, where our souls visit while we are sleeping. So we interact with these angels while we sleep, and sometimes they'll communicate divine information to us. Okay, what are demons? In the context of dreams, demons are a metaphor for the inner demons of the mind. The things that just haunt us and bother us and the stuff that are weighing us down. And these subconscious demons are released by the mind when we sleep, appearing to us as dreams. So dreams could actually be coming from two totally different places. One could be divine communications through angels. One could just be your mind just letting go of stuff. And this is our answer. Dreams that come from our imagination is when we say dreams speak falsehood. Dreams that are Narishkeit are the dreams that are simply our subconscious, the clutter of our mind just being released and just appearing to us in our sleep. But the dreams that come from angels, ooh, these dreams are miniature prophecies. These dreams are meaningful. So now we have our answer. Some dreams are very meaningful, some dreams are very not meaningful, depending where they're coming from. Is it coming from angels, coming from our imagination? What's the only question now?
Well, I don't get it, because if your imagination / demons are letting go of information and experiences and things that you've had during the day, why is that false? I mean, if that was your reality during the day.
The point that's saying is that it's meaningless dreams. You could disregard it. It's not telling you anything of meaning over here.
So it's not
There's no
just
substance.
necessarily falsehood, it's just meaningless?
Yeah, falsehood meaning as in just it doesn't carry any weight. It's just your imagination going wild, releasing stuff. Don't give any credibility. You know, that's the point here. Yeah.
Okay, so what if you have a dream and it hasn't happened yet, and then it happens?
Let's see. Right now we're talking when you have the dream. If it happens, maybe that shows us retroactively that it was a valid dream. Let's see when we get there.
The Titanic, where he dreamt and it happened.
Right. So what's the question? So it happened.
Yeah, because I've had dreams.
And then it happened.
Yeah, or I've had like a deja vu, and then, yeah.
Right. So then what's the question?
The question is then, when you dream, and if it's your imagination supposedly, but then it happens, then what?
So it's not always, it could be sometimes, we don't know. The obvious question now is, okay, we know that some dreams are meaningful. Those are the ones that come from communication via angels. Some dreams are simply the imagination going wild. You don't have to give it any credibility. And those are Narishkeit. You just forget about those dreams. What the obvious question is now, how do we know which one's what? No, if we could only know, all of our dreams appear to us the exact same way. They're always very out of touch with reality. They never make too much sense. Some of them are more vivid than others. Some are more wild than others. But you know what I'm saying? More or less, dreams are dreams. If we could only know which dreams come from angels, we could actually know which dreams are meaningful. So I'll try to give you the answer to knowing which dreams come from what. But I just want to make a quick note about dreams that come from angels. Even if we would know, and this is an important caveat, even if we would know that dreams come from angels, there are still two problems. And I want to put this up for you. Even if you know that your dream has an angelic source, number one, you have to know how to decipher that dream. You have to know how to interpret that dream. That's a very big art. You can interpret a dream wrong. Sometimes the interpretation of dreams are very counterintuitive, like we saw. What it could appear to you as a nightmare could be a blessing. What could appear like a blessing could be a nightmare. You don't know. So even if it's a dream which does give you some valid form of information, who said you will know how to decipher it properly? So that's the first point I want to put up over here. Dream interpretation is not at all simple. So even if it's a true dream, how are you to know that you are interpreting it properly? But then there's another point. I want to go back a little bit. I want you to take a look at text 2 in your books. Text 2 is on page 8. And Julie, right? Your name is Julie?
Yeah.
Read text 2. Another quote from the Talmud.
Rabbi Yochanan taught in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben
Yochai.
Yochai. Just as there can never be wheat without chaff mixed in, so too there can never be a dream without nonsense mixed in. Rabbi
Berachia.
we're taught even though part of a dream may be fulfilled, the entirety of the dream is never fulfilled. The source for these statements is found in the story of Joseph's dreams. Joseph dreamed that the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. Yet at the same time of the dream, Joseph's mother was already deceased.
So the Talmud gives us a rule. Even if the dream is legitimate, even if the dream is telling you something true or telling you something that will happen in the future, there will always be at least something in that dream which is totally false, which is just your imagination. A dream is never fully fulfilled, even if it's a fully legit dream. There's always going to be some form of narishkeiten, something of no substance at all in your dream. And that's the second caveat over here. Number two, dreams are never entirely accurate. So we got a bunch of maybes over here. Maybe your dream is real, maybe your dream is not real. Even if it's real, there's going to be something in there which is not real. So how do you know what's accurate, what's not accurate in the dream? And even what is accurate, how do you know you're deciphering? How do you know you're interpreting the dream properly? So we basically got over here the idea that dreams could be meaningful, but not a lot, not always. We don't know yet what the ratio is. And even if it is meaningful, it's very hard to know exactly. So there's no exact science over here. So we are left with the practical question over here. How do we know which dreams are what? How do we know which dreams come from angels? How do we know which dreams are just simply our imagination? Which dreams should we be taking seriously? Which dreams do we dismiss? That is the question. Now, there are two types of dreams. One type of dream is just interesting dream. Maybe it's a dream that fascinates us, but there's no real practical implication of the dream. You know, one form of dream which interests all of us is when a lost loved one, a deceased loved one, when we get to experience something, when he appears to us or she appears to us in a dream. That can be a very powerful moment. And it could be like a little bit, it would be interesting to know if that was something legitimate. Was that actually a communication between my soul and their soul? Or was it just an imaginary dream? Now, there's no real practical implication of it, but it would be interesting to know. Was that legit or was it not legit? Like, I'll tell you something interesting. Like 3 months ago, I had a dream that I was with my grandfather. My father's father. He was a wonderful person. He passed away 7 years ago. But for this last 7 years of his life, he had a stroke and he couldn't communicate and he was just in the bed. So the last time I saw my grandfather talking was when I was 18 years old, 17 years old, maybe something like that. 17, 18 years old. But it's been quite a few years since I saw my grandfather actually, young and fresh and talking and moving. And in my dream, I don't just see my grandfather, but he's talking, he's active. I wake up, I was like, wow, I don't think about my grandfather often. I love him. And he's not something I think about very often. All of a sudden, like out of the blue moon, all of a sudden, I have a dream about my grandfather. So it would be interesting to know, was that meaningful or was it not meaningful? It was just a one-time dream. Nothing dramatic happened in that dream. I don't remember much that happened. But I do remember that I woke up and I'm like, wow, I was just with Zadie in that dream. Okay, very cool. But then there's other dreams which are actually very practical. Like we get a dream that something ominous is happening. Maybe the dream tells us we got to change our job. Maybe the dream tells us don't go on the Titanic. And then it becomes a very practical question. How much validity should I take to the dream? The dream says I'm going to drown in the Titanic. Should I go? Do I cancel a $4,000 ticket? How much should a dream dominate the choices that I'll make in life? So this could sometimes be a very practical question. How do I actually know the Zoom is okay? Perfect, okay. How do we practically know what dream is what? So, I'll give you the answer. The answer comes from, we quote him so much in our classes, from the Alter Rebbe, from Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi, the author of the Tanya, the founder of the Chabad movement. And he was a rabbi, he was a spiritual leader. And this was a question that got posed to him a lot. I had a dream, I had a disturbing dream. How much validity should I give to it? And people asked him this in the context of what we spoke about. How do I know if it's a dream that's coming from an angel, from a holy place, from a meaningful place? Or is it a dream that's just my imagination, my inner demons I should totally reject? And the Alter Rebbe always gave the exact same form of advice. And this is a very easy way to determine for each one of us to know, to get a good ballpark guess where our dreams are stemming from. And the key over here is that it's not about what the dream was, it's about who is dreaming. You got to look at yourself. It all depends on you. So this is the question that we are up to right now. How can we identify the source of a dream and assess how seriously it should be taken? Let's read text 13, which is quoting from the Alter Rebbe about his advice about dreams. Text 13, page 27. Anna, would you like to read?
27?
Page 27, yes.
That's it. Text 12?
Text 13.
It's on.
Oh, this one.
There you go.
I heard explicitly from my grandfather and teacher of blessed memory that one should not be worried at all about such matters like dreams. The teaching in the Talmud that lends great significance to only apply to people of great spiritual stature whose thought are distant from the matters. If this person has an uncharacteristic experience, it must be divinely orchestrated, and it's therefore cause of concern. However, a person whose thought regularly wanders to such matter has no reason for concern. My grandfather repeated this many times and would dismiss people that were miserable as a result. You should completely ignore this and be joyful.
Okay, here's the key idea. It all depends. You could have dreams that come from your imagination. You could have dreams that come from your soul going to a spiritual space. So, it all depends on you looking at your day before you had that dream. What was the day like that you went to sleep before and you had that dream that night? Was it a day number one where you were very focused on your conscious mind? Were you allowing your mind to wander all over the place and to allow all this cluttering stimulation to enter your mind? Or were you a very focused mind? The more focused your mind is, the less of your imagination, the less of this type of a false type of imaginary inner demon dreams you will have. That's question number one. So you have to ask yourself, what was the nature of the dreamer? What was the nature of my day? Number one, are my daytime mind and thoughts under my control? The more in control you are of your mind, the less chance you'll be having these weird dreams at night. And number two, this is the critical point, did I cultivate the spiritual expression and productivity of my soul? The way it works is, the more you allow the soul's spirituality, the more you give your soul expression during the day, the higher chance you will have a dream that comes from the soul at night. So, a spiritual person who is studying Torah, do mitzvahs, where you really give time to your soul, there's a higher percentage rate that you will have a soulful experience when you dream. So I guess it's all about, give it the ratio. Unfortunately, even people who give a lot of time to their souls, most of the day we're giving time to our bodily needs. And most of the time we're just focusing on stuff in the world. And the stimulation out there is just getting us, especially in the modern day. How much time do you give to our souls a day? 5%? Even 5% is very high. You give 5% of time to your soul, you're way up there. So that means there's a 5% chance you'll have a soulful dream tonight. 95% just your imagination. If you could live a life where you are very focused on your spiritual living, 100% of your day is spiritual, your dreams are probably 100% spiritual as well. So the Alter Rebbe says it's very, very simple. Just be honest with yourself. Are you a wholly spiritual person? Then your dreams are probably going to be spiritual as well. If not, we don't know for sure. There's no exact science over here, but your dreams are probably your imagination. So if you have a dream, you have a nightmare, you have something that's bothering you, you had a dream that's disturbing you, you know what Judaism says about it? It's bothering you. Chances are, very high chances, this is nothing to worry about. If you're a big tzaddik, if you're somebody, a very righteous person, and you live a spiritual life a whole day, and then you have a dream that bothers you at night, take that seriously, because you're a spiritual person. Maybe the angels are giving you an ominous prediction. But for most people, this is nothing to worry about. It's simply your imagination running wild, and you didn't even cultivate that much spirituality during the day, so there's not much of a chance you're having such spiritual experiences when you sleep. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, simply disregard it. Especially if it's weighing you down, that's not healthy. If you're being miserable from it, live your life, no problem. So practically speaking, if Isaac Frauenthal, I'm not saying it, Frauenthal, would come to me as a rabbi and says, I have a ticket on the Titanic for next week. I've had dreams that something's gonna hit something. I would say, look, if you really want, if you're going to have major anxiety, then you have the choice if you want to cancel your trip. From the perspective of Judaism, you should go. And you know what? Even though the dream is proven to be correct, well, you know what? He was actually saved because of the dream. Would he have jumped on the first lifeboat if he didn't have the dream? No. So even though he did board the Titanic, he was at least saved because of the dream. So retroactively, we know that maybe that dream did have some meaning for him. But until we have any confirmation, the automatic assumption of dreams are, don't be concerned about it. There's a very slight possibility that this is a dream which is meaningful. Don't worry about it. This is the practical advice. This is especially true, you should know, about the stimulation we have right before we go to sleep. What are we doing right before we go to sleep? If right before we go to sleep we're in a very good space, we are in control of our minds, we've maybe studied Torah before we go to sleep, we've prayed, we've said the Shema, and we go to sleep in this atmosphere of a spiritual environment, then there's a much higher chance of us having a spiritual dream. But if we go to sleep and you're just watching TV, it's probably just your imagination is gonna be running wild. And especially today, just think about it. Today, I don't think people dreamt like we do 200 years ago. Because what happens? You dream whatever you're imagining about. So why did a little Jew in the shtetl have to already stimulate his imagination? Not that much, Today, we are bombarded. It's crazy. The news, the media, the social media, TV, just images, the news. Every war that happens is my business. Every Chinese balloon that they find is my business. Every politics in every country is my business. So our minds are just so crazy cluttered, and no wonder we're having these crazy dreams at night. So Judaism says you have to always keep it in perspective. What is happening? Okay. So practically speaking, Judaism would say there is a chance that dreams are meaningful. Generally, it's not going to be. Okay. But I don't want to conclude this class on a dud. Judaism says 2 exceptions to the rule. If you have 2 of the following dreams, there's a much higher chance that maybe this actually is a meaningful dream. Even if you're not a holy person. Number 1, Judaism says like this. What are the dreams that even a common person, not a big righteous person, not a very spiritual person, what are the dreams that we could look at in our life and say, these are very possibly dreams that could be coming from good places? Okay, before I do that, I just want to summarize this with you. Certain dreams come from the imagination, and those are dreams that speak falsehood. Those are dreams that are just illusions, nothing to think about, just a dream, dismiss them. And these types of dreams are the likely scenario for wandering minds. So if we had a day with a wandering mind, we're probably having imagination dreams. Dreams that come from angels, which are miniature prophecies, those are the likely scenario for focused spiritual people. And I'll just tell you something, and I told this earlier. Great tzaddikim gave a lot of validity to their dreams, and they write about it. We have records from rabbis who lived 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Dreams was a very big part of their spiritual living. And for us, maybe once in a blue moon, we'll have a special dream. I'll tell you something interesting. It says Yartzeit tonight, so I'll tell you a story. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he passed away in 1994, they found in his office drawers his personal diaries from his youth, which is a pretty unbelievable thing. The Rebbe had a very private life, and the Rebbe did not speak about his youth. The Rebbe spoke in general very little about himself. But the Rebbe kept diaries from the 20s, from the 30s, from the 40s. He came to America in 1941. The Rebbe escaped, but he grew up in Europe as just a private citizen, and he kept multiple diaries. We're talking about pages and pages of notes. All of his Torah thoughts, all of his Torah innovations he would write down. And different things, different conversations he had, whatever he wanted to remember, he wrote down in a diary. He writes down, this is an entry in his diary, and he wrote this for himself. Unbelievable entry from his diary. From the late 1920s, the Rebbe was engaged to his future wife, Chaya Mushka Schneerson, the daughter of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. So the Rebbe is engaged to the then Lubavitcher Rebbe's daughter. One day, this was in Poland, he goes to his father-in-law's room, his father-in-law's office, and his father-in-law says, "Where were you last night?" "Last night, I was with my father." His father was the previous Chabad Rebbe, who has already passed away for many years. "Last night I was with my father, and your brother Label was there." He tells the Rebbe, "Your brother Label was in my dream last night. And we heard a mimer, we heard a Hasidic teaching from my father. Where were you?" Now, first of all, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe never met physically the Rebbe's brother Label. So he's talking over here about a human being he never saw physically in his life. He says, "Label Schneerson was in the room with my father, and we heard a mimer last night. And where were you?" Just think about this whole... These are holy people, spiritual people, that their dreams are real business. They're meeting souls up there, they're getting messages, they're learning Torah. It's a whole different world. By us, we're just going through these crazy dreams. That just shows you over here. Dreams could be coming from two totally different places. Getting back on point, in our lives, our dreams are usually from an imaginary place, which are totally useless. No need to give it any credibility, and don't let it bother you. If you're fascinated by your dream, no problem. But if it's weighing you down and ruining your day and getting you worried about something, upset, Judaism will say, no, that's totally inappropriate. Go ahead. What do you say? Okay, go. But this is what I want to conclude with. There are two exclusions to this rule. Two times where Judaism says, even the common Jew, if you have these types of dreams, there's a much higher chance. Not always. Again, nothing is an exact science over here. Much higher chance that these dreams are legitimate, coming from a holy place, and are coming from the angels, not from the imagination. What are they? The first form of dream is like this. Judaism teaches us, and the Kabbalah teaches us, that as part of the relationship that every Jew has with God, is that God sends every Jew moments of inspiration. That even when we didn't work for that inspiration, even when we weren't expecting it, God will just send us a little signal, a little ping, that will all of a sudden shake us and jolt us and inspire us to maybe want to do something more. I know it's very cold today. This morning it was so hot here, now it's so cold. Okay. I don't know what it is. And it's like blowing cold air. You know why? No dreaming in this class. No sleeping. So this is good. Okay. So this is the idea. There's something called divine inspiration, and every Jew has divine inspirations. And what it means is, it's not going to be that God shows up to you and talks to you, but it's like something that you can't even pinpoint why it's happening to you. Maybe you wake up one day and you feel inspired. I want to do something. Maybe I want to give charity today. I want to do a mitzvah. I want to grow spiritually. I want to shake off the dust. And those are very inspiring moments when those happen. Just something is happening. And Jewish mysticism teaches that very often those divine inspirations will come to a Jew in the form of a dream. So if you ever have a dream, that is not just some weird dream, but it's a dream that inspires you, gives you a little message, gives you a push. There's a message there to grow, to do something more, to grow spiritually, to grow in Torah and mitzvahs. Judaism says, even if you're not that holy of a person, those are dreams you should cherish. Those dreams, very high chance of those dreams being meaningful. And those are dreams you should not reject. You should hold on to those dreams. That's a divine communication from angels, that God is sending you a message that you can maybe hold on to use that as an impetus for inspiration, which is such an inspiring idea. And I want to read this with you. A letter from the Rebbe. the Rebbe in general would always, he besides being a great scholar and a great Jewish leader, he loved Jews. And any Jew who would write to the Rebbe would respond. An unbelievable thing. The Rebbe wrote hundreds of thousands of letters in his lifetime, just like a crazy, to children, anybody. Somebody wrote to the Rebbe, a Jew wrote to the Rebbe like this. I don't think this Jew was religious. The letter is in English. He says, Rebbe, I've been having dreams which have been disturbing me for a long while. I've gone to professional dream interpreters, but I'm not happy with what they tell me. And I'm asking you to help me decipher the dream. Now listen to what the dream is. This guy's dream is, he is dreaming that he is angry about injustice in the world. And he says to himself in his dream that considering the state of the world, he needs to ascend from here. That's the dream. So he's having this dream once and twice and three times, like, I need to ascend from this place. Like, am I going to die? He doesn't know what's happening. He asked the Rebbe for help. This is the Rebbe's response. Unbelievable response. Text 15, where are we holding? By you, Susan? Text 15 on page 32.
As a general rule, there is no need for instructions to be communicated through dreams. For instructions, God gave each and every one of us the Torah of truth and life, which illuminates a Jew's path in life. When one isn't observing God's instructions given in the Torah, one may sometimes receive a hint regarding this in a dream or the like. It is certain that the message of your dream is not about injustice in the world in the literal sense, for such issues are completely beyond your ability to rectify. Rather, the straightforward meaning of your dream is clear. You are being shown that you need to be angry about the fact that your world, your personal life that you exercise full control over, is being conducted unjustly, contrary to divine justice. Sorry. You must descend from this mode of conduct through actual day-to-day behavior.
Are you okay, Susan?
Pardon me. In accordance with God's instructions, as stated in the Code of Jewish Law.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Now, usually the Rebbe was very dismissive of dreams. Somebody wrote to the Rebbe, I'm bothered by dreams. Everyone would say, look, the Talmud already told us. Dreams are meaningless, and just forget about it. Over here, that gives a lot of validity to the dream, and the Rebbe gives an interesting interpretation. The world is not the world. No, what do you have to be worried about the world? Your enemies can't help what's happening in Timbuktu, but your own world, they have control over. And there's maybe some injustices in our own lives. We could grow. We need to ascend. So Rebbe says, this is a spiritual message coming via dream, a little bit cryptically, to grow. Very interesting thing. So that's rule number one. If we dream, sweet dreams, an inspiration to grow in Torah and mitzvot and spirituality, those are dreams that have a much higher chance, and a very high chance, of being legit. And one last one. Judaism gives a lot of credibility, or a lot more credibility. Again, but it seems that there's a much higher chance of a dream being more legit when a deceased loved one comes to you in a dream. Not always, but there's a much higher chance. This is something you also see in Jewish writings. You see this in the Rebbe's letters. Most dreams the Rebbe disregards. But a loved one comes to you, there's something a little bit more serious to be taken there. And it's usually when that soul is a little bit agitated. Okay? So I want to now show you the rest of the video that we started watching at the beginning of class. With the messages from past loved ones. Elke, you mind getting? So now we're going to watch the rest of that video that we saw earlier.
Verloren die ganze Mischbuche. Ein Brudermann ist gestorben, eine Woche nach der Befreiung. Holen sich mir fast 2-3 Mal an der Woche. Also ich wollte mich gewesen, also ich wollte gelebt zusammen, schon 45 Jahre. Und es geht nicht weg, ich weiß nicht. Ich bin im Käufer gewesen auf einem christlichen Cemetery in Deutschland. In Deutschland? Ich habe mir rausgenommen, gemacht alle Weihe nach München, auf jüdischen Besäulem, in einem Kasten. Ich habe gerade noch 4 Brüder. Sie holen sich mir einmal selten, aber der Bruder, ich kann nicht verstehen, ich bin mit dem allemal, wie ich mit ihm gelebt jetzt sind.
Man hat gesagt, Kaddisch nachher,
ich habe gesagt, Kaddisch nachher, Jahrzeit, ja. Ich habe nicht Kadate. Ich mache Jahrzeit noch die ganze Mischbuch, als ich am Kippur.
Kann man nicht gleich mal dazu, was zugepasst. Dazu, was zugepasst.
Soll ich machen Datum?
Ja, ist doch mehr für seine Terror.
Ja.
Andere konnte doch nicht dann schei sein, wenn sie gewählt.
Ja.
Mit so einer andere in der Zeit, was ich korrigiere sehe, und ich so, wenn der Mali ist eine Schomme, der nicht Schomme so beruhigt, wird er immer ruhig leben.
Danke sehr.
Das ist ein guter Gefühl.
So what does Rebbe say over here? And this is the rule, the way Judaism sees dreams when we have some form of contact, communication from past loved ones. Generally speaking, souls that pass away, there's a healthy level of disconnect that has to happen. The souls move on to a higher world. In Judaism, souls don't usually come back to speak to us and communicate to us. There's a certain healthy sense of division that happens, and that's part of the process, and souls know that when they go up on high. You know, they're leaving the physical world, don't come back to haunt those living on earth. But sometimes when a soul is agitated, when a soul needs the help of those living here on earth, they will come back. And it's a sign that they need our assistance. Now, what assistance can we give to a soul on high? There's the things that we do, and these are not just rituals, these are very meaningful acts for the souls. Were they buried properly? Is there something here on earth that's bothering them? Did we say Kaddish for them? Like the Rebbe says over here simply, make sure to observe the yard site every year. And the key words the Rebbe says over here, when that soul, when your brother's soul will have peace, then you will have peace. Which means it's not a normal thing that your brother's coming to you in dreams. It means something's really bothering him. My great-grandfather wrote to the Rebbe that he's having dreams about his father, my great-great-grandfather. And it all of a sudden started happening. And he wrote to the Rebbe that what's happening in the family, just then, there was a very big family feud, and all the siblings there was like a sibling rivalry. And the Rebbe said it's very possible that this is deeply bothering your father's soul. The whole family should go to his grave, should visit his grave, say Kaddish, and make a pledge that there's going to be peace in the family. And then you're going to, that's what he needs. So there's this interesting thing, again, not always, but Judaism gives a lot more credibility to a loved one coming, and it usually means they're agitated because of something, and there's something that we could do for them. So, dear friends, there's more to say, but I want to conclude with this final thought. Judaism wants us going to sleep very mindfully. Sleeping is not just a passive experience, it's a very spiritual experience. It's an important time of our life. A third of our life is not wasted. It's a very meaningful, it happens in the subconscious, but it's a very important moment. You know, today there's a problem. People don't go to sleep these days. People fall asleep. You know the difference? It used to be that people went to sleep. You go to bed, close the lights, say good night, go to sleep. Today, you know what people do? You hold your phones, and then you know what happens? The phone hits your nose. That's how you know you're sleeping. You don't go to sleep, you fall asleep, which means it's like this passive experience. Judaism doesn't want us going to sleep that way. Judaism has a whole night ritual to say the Shema. But before you say the Shema prayer, we say this paragraph. I'm going to read it to you in English. This is in the Siddur. Master of the universe, I hereby forgive anyone who has angered or vexed me or sinned against me, either physically or financially, against my honor or anything else that is mine, whether accidentally or intentionally, inadvertently or deliberately, by speech or by deed. May no man be punished on my account. May it be your will, Lord our God, and God of my fathers, that I shall sin no more, nor repeat my sins. Neither shall I again anger you, nor do what is wrong in your eyes. The sins that I have committed, erase in your abounding mercies, but not through any suffering or severe illnesses. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. What did we say? Number one, forgive everybody. The day's ending. Don't bring all that baggage with you to bed. Clear the mind, clear the heart, clear the conscience. You did anything wrong that day? Ask forgiveness from God. Go to sleep with peace. With peace. You see what's happening over here? Then we recite the Shema. And there's lots of other stuff happening over here in the Shema. And then we conclude with a blessing. And Jewish law says you shall not do anything, or you shouldn't either speak anything after this blessing. So if you go to sleep and you read or you chat with your spouse, no problem. But when you're ready to go to sleep, recite this blessing. I'm going to email you a sheet with these prayers. This is what we say. Listen to this. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who causes the bonds of sleep to fall upon my eyes and slumber upon my eyelids, and who gives light to the apple of the eye. May it be your will, Lord my God and God of my fathers, to let me lie down in peace and to raise me up to a good life and peace. Let my thoughts not trouble me, nor bad dreams, nor sinful fancies, and may my bed be perfect before you. Give light to my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Blessed are you, Lord, who in his glory gives light to the whole world. That should be the last thing that you are saying and doing before going to bed. So Judaism is very much like this. If you want to have good dreams, if you want to be in a holy space when you dream, it's a spiritual experience sleeping. As much as it's physiological, it's spiritual as well. Forgive everybody, say the Shema, don't go on your phone anymore, get in the right zone, and sleep is a whole different experience when you do that. And dear friends, with that we conclude. I wish you all sweet dreams. and next week we continue with lesson 2, the stars and the signs in the heavens. Buckle up, we got more coming up. Thank you all for joining. If you have any questions, I'm here now. You could always call me, email me. Always happy to discuss. So thank you all for joining. I hope you all enjoyed, and we'll see you all later.